Hi there, Johnny here from johnnyliptonstudios.co.uk and welcome back to the Mixing Tips series. Sorry about that, I just clattered my hand into the desk, not very clever. Today we're going to start a two-part miniature mini-series on ambient effects. So today we are going to look at reverbs. Now, most people, I'm sure, even if you're just starting out, will be familiar what a reverb is. It's when a sound is projected across a room and then the sound impacts on the walls and the ceiling and the floor of the room and then is reflected back towards the middle of the room. So, for example, if you were to go into somewhere like, let's say St. Paul's Cathedral in London, and you stand in the center of that massive, great big dome that's there, and you clap, it's going to reverberate for a very long time. And it sounds absolutely awesome. I've done that, and it's amazing. So that's what a reverb is. And it's different to a delay, in that a delay is the sound that you make, let's say again, clapping your hand, and the sound travels, hits another surface, and comes straight back. So, for example, if you're, let's say you're in a canyon, like the Grand Canyon or something, and you decide that you're going to shout hello. And so you shout hello, there's no immediate surfaces around you to reverberate, so the sound travels across the canyon, hits the other side of it, and comes straight back. And you hear the sound of your own voice come back. That would be a delay. So those are the two ambient effects that I use the most, delays and reverbs. I tend to use reverbs on other things other than the lead vocal. I'm not a big fan of reverbs on lead vocals. I tend to think that they muddy up a lead vocal and can make it a bit indistinct at times. But if you're really skillful, you can manage that with how much you send to your reverb and also with EQing your reverb, which we will come on to in a little while. But anyway, it's just a personal thing of mine, really, that I don't tend to use reverbs very, very much on mixes in general, but certainly even less so on a lead vocal. So I've got a song here. It's a Bob Dylan cover, and the song is called One Too Many Mornings. And it features some guitar, a mandolin, which is the solo instrument, a fretless bass, brushes on a PreSonus headphone box, and a shaker to provide some forward motion, some backing vocals, and that's pretty much it. It's a very, very small acoustic kind of setup. So I'm going to play a little bit of this song and show you how I've used reverbs in this particular song. Here we go.
Down the street the dogs are barking and the days are getting dark. As the night comes in a falling, the dogs will lose their bark, and the silent night will shatter from the sounds inside my mind. Yes, I'm just one too many mornings and 1,000 miles behind. Crossroads of my doorstep, my eyes they start to fade, and I turn my head.
Okay, so at the end there you could hear the delay on the vocal a little bit. But yeah, today's focus is reverb, so let's have a look at what we've done. I have two different reverbs. I have this one here just called Reverb, imaginatively named, and then this one here, which I've called Brush Verb, which is a reverb that I tailor-made for this track here, the brushes track, and I've also got the shaker sent to the same reverb. So let's in fact start right at that point there. So let's solo these two guys, and I will open the room reverb and you can see what I've done here. So let's just play a little bit of the brushes on the box and the shaker. So quite a long reverb, as you can tell. The size of the room is quite small, is a little bit smaller than the other reverb. This one is 7.5 meters more or less. But I've got quite a big pre-delay and quite a long length, 26 seconds more or less. If I were just to leave this, it would take that length of time for the reverb to die away. And the mix is at 0.8 of reverb. And I've used this particular size because I wanted the shaker to have a bit more sparkle and the brushes to have a bit more sparkle. But I've also EQ'd this after the fact as well. And actually I'm just going to roll this up even more. Just to completely just get all the low end out of the reverb. So the only things being affected by the reverb is all the upper mids and the highs. That's all I'm interested in. If I were to just allow all the lows through the reverb, it would get very muddy, mushy and indistinct and a little bit crowded. And that becomes really hard to mix, but it also becomes really hard to listen to as well. Not very nice. So that's why I high pass filter all of my ambient effects. So that includes delays. And I'm going to show you what can happen if you don't high pass filter your reverb. So let's have a listen to that without the low cut, the high pass filter. And I'll bring it in. And back in again. It's probably quite subtle. You probably, unless you're listening on really good studio monitors or good studio headphones, you're probably not really hearing the difference there between the high pass filter off and the high pass filter on. But certainly when it comes to the brushes on the box, there's obviously a bit of boxiness there because we're hitting a box. So there's that particular frequency there that when I take off the high pass filter becomes quite prominent through the reverb, and it's just not very nice. So that's why I use high pass filter there. So on the main reverb, so I've got a different setting here. Shorter reverb length of just about 2 seconds. Pre-delay of 54 milliseconds, 20 meter room, and 0.33 of the dampness here. Dampness is very cool because it can really change the tonal qualities of your reverb. So it's quite good to have a play about with this, and the population is kind of like the population of the room. So how many, it simulates the number of people you might have in the room that can absorb some of the reverberation. So those are really cool to have a play with, and you can really shape your reverb and its tonality with these two controls. Very cool. So this main track here has, if I click here, it tells me what's going to it. So I've got the mandala, the backing vocals, and the other mandala solo, which is the one at the end, and the guitar, all going through this main reverb track. So I'm going to play the song again from, actually, why don't I play it from just before the mandala solo, and you can hear how the mandala has the reverb on it. Hang on. Let's turn off the solos.
It's a restless, hungry feeling that.
So you can hear then that I gave the mandala really quite a lot of reverb, which I've just decided just to dial back a little bit because it was just a little bit too much, making the mandala a little bit indistinct. So basically, my rule of thumb with reverb is to set it where you can hear it on a particular track or on a mix overall, and then dial it back until you can hardly hear it. And when you're at that point, I would suggest that you've got the balance of the reverb exactly right, because a reverb to me should be felt rather than absolutely heard. I mean, obviously there are different scenarios where I might bend that rule, or I might actually overlook that rule altogether, but generally speaking, that's how I approach a reverb. I mean, there are some sort of power ballads where I might break that rule altogether and have a fair amount of reverb. For example, on a rim tap on a snare drum, I might have a massive reverb for that. Or a vocal. Again, in that kind of power ballad style, I might use a reverb and a delay in combination to create a nice ambience for the vocal to sit in. So there are different approaches, but my general rule of thumb is to not overdo the ambient effects. They're there to give your mix a sense of space and a sense of color a little bit. And of course an ambience. That's why we call them ambient effects. So that's my main philosophy. I hope this video is helpful and useful to you. Give some of the things that I've shown you here a try. Remember, EQ your reverb, and we'll talk about EQing delays in the next video. But make sure you are balancing how much low end is going through your reverbs, and it will help you keep your mixes nice and crisp and clear and not muddied. So until next time, cheers for now.